The JPMRC is the first combat training center established by the U.S. Army in over 50 years and is the first combat training center for the Indo-Pacific. It will include several thousand participants from all U.S. Joint Services and the Coast Guard, as well as active participants from Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines. JPMRC increases combined training opportunities for our regional allies and our partners and produces significant cost savings versus moving personnel and equipment to continental U.S. training facilities. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions. I'm going to first turn it over to Lita, who's joining us on the phone.
Hi, Sabrina. Thank you. I have a couple of quick things. First, the Secretary, I just want to make sure I'm interpreting the Secretary's comments yesterday accurately. He said we'll be able to get the capability and trained troops married up in Ukraine on the NASAMS early next month. Am I hearing that correctly? That means that there are already troops trained on the NASAMS in Ukraine or that have been trained. There are already Ukrainian troops that have been trained that are ready to use these NASAMS early next month when they arrive. And is there also the AMRAAM ammunition already there? And then just secondly, very quickly also, can you say whether or not there are thousands or tens of thousands of Russian troops that have come into Ukraine, that the new troops that have just been brought in as conscripts? The Russians have said 82,000 are in, and defense officials have been saying they've only seen small numbers. I'm trying to figure out which is accurate. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Lita, for the questions. Few things to unpack there. So first, in terms of the training, when on your question with training on the NASAMS, there is a training program with this system, and once it has been completed, the system will be ready for delivery to Ukraine, and we anticipate that that training program will conclude soon. For operational security, I'm not going to be able to provide more details on that, but for when the NASAMS are delivered in country, I would refer you to our Ukrainian partners to make that announcement. And on your second question on the troop numbers that has been reported of Russian troops coming into Ukraine, I've seen the open source reporting. I have nothing more to add at this time. It's something that we continue to monitor and assess the situation on the ground, but I have nothing to add to those reports at this time. I'm going to turn it over to the room. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Sabrina. I have two questions for you.
Sure.
The first one is, the Nuclear Posture Review notes that as directed by the fiscal year 2022 NDAA, DoD will commission an independent review of the safety, security, and reliability of U.S. nuclear weapons, NC3, and integrated tactical warning and attack assessment systems. What's the status of that review? Has it kicked off yet? And is there anything you can share about when it might be anticipated to be completed?
Sure. So I don't have a status update or an actual date of to announce on when the review will be completed. I'd be happy to keep you updated on that. For more information on the NPR, that is available now. I think the Secretary laid out the strategy that's been put forward in the review, which is to continue to deter any country, any nation from using nuclear weapons, and of course reassuring our allies and partners that we continue to work with them if any deterrents were to fail.
And then how concerned is Secretary Austin with the current state of NC3 specifically, and how modern NC3 systems are operating?
I have not been able to have an opportunity to discuss that with him. I would happily take that question and get back to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rio.
Thank you. One question on Japan. There are some reports that Japan is in talks with the United States to procure Tomahawk cruise missiles. Does the Pentagon support Japan's such procurement to help Japan to strengthen its self-defense capability?
Sure. So as a matter of policy, as you probably know, I'm not going to be able to comment on any potential arms sales or transfers before they are formally notified to Congress. But look, for 70 years, we've had a very strong relationship with Japan. It's a relationship that has served as the cornerstone of peace and stability and freedom in the Indo-Pacific region. And we're going to continue to work with Japan when it comes to addressing our regional and global objectives. But for any other information when it comes to sales, I would refer you to the State Department. Yeah. Yes, Sylvie.
Yes, thank you. To go back to the package, new package of aid to Ukraine, the 4 satellite communication antennas, are they Starlink or another company, and how were they?
Sure.
Okay.
So these are SATCOM antennas that are coming off of our shelves. These are not Starlink antennas. These just to level set here, these SATCOM antennas are going to provide additional communications capabilities to the Ukrainians at a critical time, but are separate from what Starlink provides.
Okay. And what about the RAM system? Is it something that they required?
Again, these packages are worked out with our Ukrainian partners, and so this is something that certainly we have discussed with them, and they feel that will make an impact on the battlefield. Some of the equipment and systems that are mentioned are, having everyday impacts that we're seeing on the battlefield, and that's why we are providing more, for example, more ammunition when it comes to the HIMARS systems. And so these are something that we are seeing the Ukrainians employ successfully on the battlefield every day. I'm going to go back to the phones really quickly, and then I can come back into the room. Sang-Min Lee, RFA.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. I have 2 questions about North Korea. Yesterday, North Korea launched another short-range ballistic missile. So I want to know if you have any comment on that. And second question is about the nuclear posture review was released yesterday regarding the North Korea. So that NPR mentioned that any nuclear attack by North Korea against United States or its ally and partner is unacceptable and will result in the end of the regime. And there is no scenario in which the Kim regime could employ nuclear weapon and survive. Can you elaborate on this part?
Sure. So I'll take your first question first, and then I'll come back to the NPR. So we can confirm that North Korea did launch 2 ballistic missiles. Just to give you a little bit more detail, the launches were from the central part of the country. We believe early in the day, October 28th, so late in our day on the 27th. These missiles landed in the vicinity of Alsam Island. And we have assessed that these launches, this event does not pose any immediate threat to U.S. personnel or our allies. And again, we have and we continue to do, we are going to continue working closely with our partners and allies in the region. But the actions that the DPRK has taken, again, further destabilize the region, and our commitments to the Republic of Korea and Japan remain ironclad. In terms of the NPR and what was released yesterday, and I think I remember most of your question, look, we released the nuclear posture review because we believe that a nuclear weapon should never be used. And part of this review is to ensure that we are deterring other nations from using nuclear weapons. Our goal is to see a full denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That is something that our partners and allies want. That is something we want. And so the actions that that DPRK continues to take further destabilize the region, but also further commit and strengthen our relationship to the Republic of Korea and Japan. I'm going to go to our next question on the phone. Idris, Reuters.
Hey, 2 quick questions. Firstly, has Secretary Austin reached out to Defense Minister Shoigu at any point since Sunday? And secondly, is it your understanding that the Russian ground exercises are now over, at least the missile launch part of it?
Thanks, Idris. So in terms of any calls or any outreach, I have nothing for you to preview at this time. If there is another call, I'd be happy to relay that when that, if that does happen. And in terms of the exercises, Russia's strategic nuclear exercises, as far as we are aware and as what we are monitoring is that they are ongoing. We won't speculate on future actions, but we are continuing to closely monitor this exercise as it continues, most likely into the weekend. I'll take another one from the phone, and then I'll come back into the room. Laura Sagelman, Politico.
Hi, Sabrina. Thanks for doing this. I wanted to follow up on Sylvie's question about the aid package and the communications antenna. Is this the first time you're sending antenna that is not supporting Starlink? Can you just clear that up?
This is the first time that we are sending 4 SATCOM antennas. Now, antennas can work with different types of satellites, so it's not just that they could work with Starlink. These just help improve communications capabilities on the battlefield.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Why are you sending these now for the first time, and what will that support? How will that help Ukraine in this stage of the fight?
Well, look, I mean, we're seeing Ukrainian infrastructure and electrical grids being targeted by the Russians, and these antennas provide an additional capability on the ground at a critical time when Ukraine's infrastructure is being hit. They're not. These SATCOMs are not intended to serve as a substitute for a service like Starlink. They help increase communication efforts on the battlefield. Do you have a follow-up, or did I think I answered? Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned, or it had been previously mentioned, that Spain was going to be delivering the Hawks air defense systems. The U.S. obviously has plenty of those systems, and it was mentioned also that there's going to be training conducted on the systems. Is the U.S. supporting in that training, and is there any possibility on the U.S. In a future PDA, I guess, delivering those systems to Ukraine?
Well, as you know, I wouldn't speculate on upcoming packages, nor would I get ahead of our the leadership on their decisions. But look, I mean, Spain is providing the Hawk air defense systems. I'm not going to comment on the training there, but you know, as you have seen from the beginning, we have provided air defense systems to the Ukrainians in some of our very first packages. We provided 1,400 Stingers at the very beginning. We've committed to providing 8 NASAMs. And as Sylvie had asked in one of her questions, 2 we anticipate will be there next month, and training should be concluding soon, so the Ukrainians will be able to operate those NASAM systems. But just to broaden it out, this is not just a U.S. effort. We have our partners and allies, like you mentioned, Spain, but Germany has committed also to providing an IRST system. And that's, you know, that is the point of these contact groups. It is to work with our partners and allies around the world to ensure Ukraine has what it needs on the battlefield day to day. And that's why we're extremely pleased that our partners and allies have been donating these systems to Ukraine.
Ukraine is still being hit by missiles and drones. Would you appreciate if more partners and allies were able to commit more to them, to this effort?
I mean, we are in constant contact with our partners and allies. You just saw this week, the Secretary spoke with his Canadian counterpart, and part of, I mean, and we're just coming off of the most recent Ukraine contact group. We are constantly working with our allies to see what else can be provided. But this is an open communication, open dialogue. We know that countries are doing what they can, and we're very grateful for it. Yeah. Anyone else in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry I'm late. If somebody asks this question, I apologize.
That's all right.
As you know, New York State Supreme Court rejected New York City's mandate for the COVID-19. Does that have any implications here in the DOD, and is that going to cause a more examination of the DOD's COVID mandate? Is it still the policy now?
It is still the policy now. We encourage all service members to get the vaccine. Look, I mean, we require all service members to get the vaccine. I'm not going to comment on any ongoing litigation. I'm sorry if I'm not just not going to go any further on that front. But yes, we do require our service members to get the vaccine. And as of right now, I have nothing new to announce in terms of if that policy is changing. But right now, it's not. I'll go back to the phone, and then I'll come into the room for any other additional questions. Jeff Selden, VOA.
Thanks very much for doing this. 3 quick questions, hopefully. First, New York Times is reporting that Somalia is asking the U.S. to loosen restrictions on airstrikes against al-Shabaab. Can you talk at all about what the Pentagon's thinking is regarding this request, and also what the latest assessment is regarding how strong al-Shabaab remains or its capabilities in Somalia? Second, curious if there's any updates on what role the Wagner Group or other paramilitaries are playing right now in Russia's war in Ukraine, especially as more regular troops, according to Russia, are being sent to the front. And then finally, the Pentagon NSC has said repeatedly now that the U.S. is not seeing any signs that Putin or Russia have made a decision to use nuclear weapons or a dirty bomb, or that there have been any preparations for Russia to do that. If that's the case, what does the Pentagon think is the reason that Putin and other Russian officials keep making these empty threats? What is Russia trying to gain from this?
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate the questions, and hopefully I will not forget any. I wrote your 3 down. In terms of what is Putin and Russia thinking, you would have to ask them. I can't speak to that. I can't get into the mind of what President Putin is thinking, but I will say that the rhetoric that is coming out of Russia, and not just from Vladimir Putin, but from others, is incredibly dangerous. It is destabilizing. It is not something that we would expect from a nuclear power, some of the language that is being used. And that is why we are certainly urging de-escalation when it comes to not just this language, but also just what we're seeing in Ukraine. I guess I'll work slightly backwards here. In terms of your question, I think it was on Wagner and movements within Ukraine. I've seen the open source reporting that you're referring to. I certainly don't have anything to add to that at this time, but if we do, I will let you know. And then on Somalia. So we will not speak to internal policy discussions. Our AFRICOM and this department here is continually evaluating the situation on the ground in Somalia. We work closely with our partners there on the ground on how we can both be effective at defeating al-Shabaab, and we're working to continuing having an open dialogue with them on how to improve operations. But in terms of any recommendations that the command has on the execution of our mission in Somalia, I don't have anything else to preview at this time. I will take another question from the phone, and then I will come back into the room. Roxana, Bloomberg.
Hi. Thank you for doing this. Just a really quick question on the ammunition, the 155 millimeters. Are those Excalibur?
Thanks for the question. I'm not going to have more to provide on that at this time. I just would direct you to what you should actually be getting hopefully a press release in your inbox. I know you can't see the slide on the board here, but I just have no other details to provide at this time.
Thanks.
Great. I'll take one more from the phone, then I'll come back in the room. Heather, USNI.
Thanks so much. I was just wondering if in conversations with Ukraine about what the United States can provide, has there been any concern about the lack of maritime equipment I noticed that when we've talked recently that there's been caliber cruise missiles coming from ships, and I was just wondering if there's been any U.S. response to providing equipment to take down some of those ships or prevent some of those cruise missiles from hitting civilian targets.
Thanks, Heather. As you know, and as you saw this week, the Secretary was in touch with his counterpart, Minister Reznikov. We are in constant contact with what Ukrainians need on the battlefield, as you can see from this package today. I don't have any further updates on any other capabilities that we're providing on the maritime front. Okay, I'll come back in the room. Yeah.
I just have two questions on the package.
Sure.
For the 1,300 anti-armor systems, are those Javelins? Are those something else? Is there any?
Yes, let me give you some more detail on that. So the anti-armor systems, they're shoulder-launched multi-purpose assault weapons and AT-4s.
Okay. And then on the Starlink, you said it's not intended as or the antennas are not intended as a substitute for Starlink. Right. Is there any connection between the recent uncertainty about Starlink and the provision of these antennas at this time? Is it kind of an augmentation in light of uncertainty related to Starlink, or is there no link there at all?
No, there's not. This is something, we're seeing critical infrastructure in Ukraine being hit. And while the Ukrainians do have access to the Starlink capabilities, having additional SATCOM capabilities on the ground is certainly helpful for them. It provides for better just general command and control on the ground. And so, but no, nothing to do in terms of access to Starlink. Mo, did you have a question? Yeah. I'll come back.
So the governor of New York has mobilized the National Guard to help with asylum seekers who have been arriving to shelters in and around New York City. I was wondering if you could tell us if you had any more information about how many Guard have actually been requested, what they'll be doing, what shelters they've been placed at, and then additionally, have there been any additional requests put in this week or requested this week?
Thanks for the question. I don't have more information on that at this time. I'd be happy to look into that, but I would actually direct you to the National Guard for those numbers. And I'm sorry, did you have another follow-up? Okay, you're great. Okay, yes.
My question is about NPR and China.
Sure.
NPR released yesterday mentioned that the U.S. has made greater progress about the dialogue and crisis management with China. But China, as a reaction to NPR, they accused U.S. that the U.S. uses nuclear weapons for geopolitical goals, and it's against the expectation of preventing nuclear war. So how do you react to Chinese?
Sure. Our goal, using a nuclear weapon is never our goal. Our goal is to deter. And that's of course laid out in the NDS. But one of the things that's also laid out is, and that the Secretary spoke more about, is deterring strategic attacks on the United States, our allies, and our partners, deterring aggression, and being prepared to prevail in conflict if necessary. Look, we don't seek conflict with China. We can be competitors, but we also know that China remains our pacing challenge, and so we are going to continue to make sure that we are responsible in how we use our weapons and our capabilities. But our main goal here is to deter.
Do you have expectation that the U.S. can resume the dialogue with China about crisis management?
We always would like to maintain an open dialogue. That's something that you've seen the Secretary do before, and so I would certainly say that we welcome an open communication dialogue with China. I'm going to take one more question from the phone, and then if anyone has any last questions, I will come to the room. I realized I missed Louis Martinez, ABC. Don't know.
Hi, Sabrina. This is an out of left field question, maybe an out of this world question. It has to do with UAPs, unexplained aerial phenomena. 4 months ago, Dr. Hicks established something called ARROW, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, kind of a change from the previous AOI MSG organization. How is that progress going with in terms of UAP analysis, in terms of what what progress has been made in determining what has been seen in those videos. And also, there's a report out today that maybe possibly Chinese surveillance might be responsible for some of the imagery that's been captured that has been partially explained as not being UAPs earlier this year. Just looking for some comments on the Chinese surveillance angle. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for the question. I don't have much to provide in terms of an update on the review and more on UAPs. When I do, I will certainly provide that to you. But at this time, and I've also seen the open source reporting, but nothing to add right now. Anything else in the room before I wrap it up? Okay. Well, happy Friday. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday. Thanks.